Welcome to the Top 10 Gardener with Master Gardener Ken Lain. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and top 10 advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, welcome your garden host, Ken Lain.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lain, here every week talking about the landscapes of Northern Arizona. Oh, May, this is why we live in Northern Arizona. It's so perfect all the time. It's been great. So the gardens are responding well. My tomatoes have doubled in size this week. So they're doing great. Squash is taking off. My hydrangeas are over the top. Hydrangeas, people don't realize that hydrangeas do grow here very well as long as you get them out of the sun and the wind. They don't mind the cold. They don't mind the temperature. It's that sun. The UV rays are so intense that they tend to have the leaves get burned. But if you get them, like mine is on the north side of my house, underneath the patio. So pretty much it gets some morning sun, and then the rest of the day, it's shaded. And it is 100% all the time, rightest bloom, covered in blue. It's fantastic. It's right there in the back patio. Everyone that comes down goes, "Oh my gosh, wow." I put it in a container so I can move it around where I want. It's just beautiful. And so hydrangeas do well. The other one that people don't realize is rhododendron. Oh, rhododendrons grow here? Yeah, they do really well. They just don't like the sun. So they'll take more sun than a hydrangea, but they need to be out of that 10 to 2 midday heat. If you do that, so the north side of the house, under the canopy of trees, next to a deck where it's got some shade, in a container by the front door that's covered, those are places for your shade-loving plants. So we segment these out at the garden center. Okay, these are all your shade-loving perennials, shade-loving annual flowers. It's fuchsias, begonias, coleus. Here's all of our shade blooming shrubs. That's azaleas and hollies and rhododendrons and rhodies, hydrangeas. What did I just say? I'm in a circle here. So that we kind of segregate them. And those plants like some sun in the morning or late in the day. It's at midday, middle of the day, that heat in June, that's what's going to get it. And so we've got a whole nother section, which is actually much larger. It's actually easier to find plants that grow in the sun than it is in the shade because our sun is just so intense. So those plants, those are lilacs and crepe myrtles and rose of Sharons. I mean, the list goes on. Russian sage. I mean, the list goes on and on. Rosemary. I just put a beautiful crop of creeping rosemary. So all of our sunny shrubs, we segment them. So we've curated them. So we get an entire row, hundreds of plants that are knee-high and below shrubs. So ground covery kind of thing. So I put some Huntington carpet rosemary in there. Went, this is so perfect. It's a great plant. It's the hardiest of all the trailing or creeping or carpet type of rosemaries. It comes back year after year. It gets just below knee-high and evergreen. Going, this should not be in the herbs. This deserves to be down here in the shrub section that's knee-high and below. Then we go by hip high because people generally shop. I need something about, I don't know, 3-4 feet tall. Here they all are. You got evergreens, you got bloomers, you got grasses, but they all grow about hip high. And then we got the screeners. I need to block the wind. I don't want to see my neighbors. I need this head high and above. So those are red tip photinias, cotoneasters, pampas grass, euonymus. There's a lot of them. Silverberry, elaeagnus. It goes on and on. There's an entire bed, hundreds of plants. And so you go and try just these are all for the sun area, and we go by height. And then you can go read all the tags, look at the signs, decide which one. Plants call to you. As you're walking through a garden, or you walk through a garden center that's done really well. I mean, we are a top end. So Waters Garden Center has been around 62 years. And we are a real garden center. Like if you've been to like a over the top garden center anywhere in the country, okay, that's the bar. That's us. And every city has one. So Warner's Nursery, good friends of ours up in Flagstaff. They're over a real garden center. Plant Fair over in Payson, good friends of ours. They're a real garden center over in Star Valley. Barrage Nursery down at the base of Camelback Mountain. Mesquite Valley Growers, good friends of ours down in Tucson. Real garden centers. And then you've got, really we call it, a consultant once explained it to me, Ken, there's only three kinds of garden centers. There's the weird and interesting. These are your, I only grow cactus, or I only grow natives, or I only grow herbs, or I only grow, they're so specialized, but they're freakishly interesting people. They're artists. They just grow these really cool plants. But there's not a lot of them. They're just really specialized. So I only grow tomatoes and that's it. Okay, well, what about my broccoli and peppers? And then there's Walmart or the box store. So he's doing W's, weird, Walmart, and Wonderful. These are folks that have beautiful displays, perfect plants. They're well maintained. Usually butterflies, fairies, and hummingbirds are flying around the garden center. Those are wonderful garden centers. And so we always try to provide that wonderful experience. You should be able to come into a great garden center and be inspired, just relax. And it's kind of my time to myself. And you should be able to pick up a plant, take it home with you, and go plant it. That's a great garden center. And so it's what we try to pull off. We've got a lot of things going on. Right now, for myself, the garden advice I was fertilizing my gardens. So I'm getting finished. So I've got a lot of flowers going in, lots of herbs, lots of vegetables going in, some new shrubs. So I'm accessorizing. I'm taking some things out. I just ripped a rosemary, a barbecue rosemary. This is an upright rosemary, evergreen. It's about knee high or so, but puts on these long herbal kind of rosemary branches, and you can pick those off and make skewers out of them. And you can skewer your chicken or your pork, and just the herbs permeate the grillable meats just from the inside out. It's magical. I mean, it's good stuff. But it was looking old. It had been in there for like 10 years, and I went, okay, that's it. I don't want no more ugly plants in the Lain casa. We're going to change this thing out. I ripped that thing out by the roots, threw it in the trash can, put a brand new one in. Cost me like $5.99. Just good. Okay, that's it. Why was I putting up with this ugly thing for so long? We live in America, the greatest country that's ever existed. I don't have to put up with ugly plants. And so I just popped it out this morning and went, okay, I feel better. I'm going to nurse this thing along, nurture it, watch it grow and thrive for another 10 years. That's a great thing about plants. You might pay a few dollars up front, but you get to enjoy it for years. Perennials are for years and years. Trees are decades. A great shrub should last 20, 30 years. So lilacs, they'll probably outlive you. Forsythia, crepe myrtles, they're gonna be there for years. It's worth every dime if they're just healthy. Come back. That's one too. I was helping someone with some trees, some fruit trees. Listen, you really want to handpick your fruit trees. A pretty tree gets more beautiful with age and healthier. An ugly tree just gets uglier. I mean, it just gets worse. So it compounds. It goes, look how ugly I am, and I can be uglier. So you really want dog-leg trees, things with a bag trunk. You want a really pretty tree. I was fertilizing my container gardens, and I realized, you know what? I had one of my watering cans failed. I'm mixing up Flower Power, my water soluble fertilizer, in my water can. And it broke. So it wore out. Literally the sun broke down the plastic. It's a 2.5 gallon watering can. And so I threw it away, and I had another one. So I finished up the job, and I went, you know what? Gardeners need 2 watering cans. You're filling one up and you're taking the other. If you have any amount of gardens at all, you just put your Flower Power, get your fertilizer in, and just start watering. It's just so much more efficient with 2 watering cans, and not a bucket, not a tiny one, 2.5 gallon plastic green watering can. They're very inexpensive, but I keep 2 in the front yard, 2 in the back, and I just fertilize and make my plants happy. And usually I have something mixed up, either a compost tea or fertilizer in there, so I can make my plants happy. I think you need the right tools. Another one, if you're new to the area, a moisture meter is your friend until you get familiar with how your soil dries out. So 2 watering cans and a moisture meter are like entry level to gardening for a new gardener here in the local area. Anyway, enough of my rant. We got Lisa Watersling coming in with your garden questions right after this. Waters Garden companion plants in May are Indian hawthorn, purple robe locust, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and vining akebia.
Akebia is a super vigorous vine with dangling fragrant flowers.
She proliferates up arbors, pergolas, fences, and stunning as a ground cover to retain hills.
One of the fastest growing evergreen vines you can plant in the gardens.
You'll only find the hardiest vines at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join his daily podcast for timely garden advice seasonally right for the gardens. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott or through his website at top10gardener.com. You're listening to Garden Master Ken Lain and the Top 10 Gardener podcast. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show.
And we are back with Lisa Watersling in the studio. She comes each week with your garden questions. Just what are neighbors talking about? And if the flowers are blooming in your neighbor's yard, it's going to be blooming throughout the neighborhood. And so I think there's some value in sharing that back and forth. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you.
Any interesting questions? Like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting for this one for a month. No,
I haven't seen anything outside the norm lately or heard anything.
It's May. Everything's gardening. Everything's animals, how to water. Well, there's bugs.
Yeah. So our first question is how to water.
Of course.
So Don is in Prescott. He has a peach tree that he's had in the ground over a year.
Okay.
So he was in talking. He's been watering 3 times a week. Okay. He said, no, only water 1 time a week.
Right.
So his question is that right?
Yeah. Listen, was he here or was he at the competitors? So if he's here. So we have a water guide. So anyone that's got a business card has a water guide on the back of their card. In the back of that card, it says, for plants that are established, they've been rooting for over 2 years, had 2 seasons to actually flush their roots into the surrounding soil, that a deep soak once a week is optimal. Even when it's 90, it hasn't even been hot yet, but even in the summer when it's hot, once a week, a deep soak. So you're pushing that water through the entire root zone and then a little bit farther so that it's reaching, it's going deeper for those roots. This is especially important for you folks out in that heavy clay area. So the Dewey, Humboldt, the Prescott Valley, Paulden, you guys have heavy clay soil. And it takes a while for that. If you're watering the whole soil band, the whole root zone, it's going to take a while for that water to evaporate, to dry out. The top can look dry, right, but then you go down an inch, even a half inch, and it's very moist. You can kill a peach tree. Pitted fruits, plums, peaches, apricots, nectarines, they all like moist, but then they need to breathe. So if you're going to kill those varieties of plants, it'll be from overwatering. That's frequency. They never got a chance to dry out. So it's critical. I'd say no more, at least for the love of gardening, for the love of peach trees, water only twice a week would be enough. 3 is far too. That's every other day. It's going to drown. Yeah. It's not going to perform well. It's going to drop or shed its fruits as it gets too wet. And so I'd say, yeah, too much. I think you were fed a good line from the professionals at the garden center.
Okay, so remember that. All right, next question is from Alan in Prescott. He has, a large clump of aspen trees.
Yeah.
That one of the trunks of the aspen trees did not put out leaves, but it's sending up lots of shoots from the bottom.
Okay.
So he wants to know, is that aspen tree probably dead? And what should he do with the shoots? Will they do anything?
So and this is very common for aspens. This is how they grow wild out in the forest. It's kind of, you'll just see some dead ones every once in a while. It's pretty common. Now, don't give up hope. Alan, don't go digging, cutting that thing down yet. Test it first. And the way you test a branch to see if it is alive or dead, you take your thumbnail or a pocket knife or something, scrape the bark off. If the wood underneath that bark is green, that is alive. It will come out. It just got zapped by frost. Something happened where it was that one was stressed out and the others didn't. So it's crying about it. So it's late to leaf out. If it's brown underneath the bark or white, brown or white, that particular area or that branch is dead. And so if it's brown all the way down to the base, you have to cut that off. And now that will free up your suckers, what we call them, the wild shoots coming up from the roots. They will just ignite with new growth. And by the end of the season, you'll never know that one of the branches kind of died back. But pretty common. We hear this pretty often, even with our own. I don't know why that happens. If an aspen tree gets stressed out at all, if it's a little bit cold in the winter, it loses a branch. When it's a little, gophers, who knows, grubs could have gotten in there. Something happened where that branch got stressed and died over the winter and is not coming back. But luckily, aspens are hard to kill because they come right back from the roots and start taking off. Fertilize it, give it some 744 all-purpose plant food, and you'll get 6 feet of growth off that sucker. Literally it'll go from a sprout to, oh my gosh, that thing's growing crazy. I am a gardener. Wow. So
I think it would be a good idea for him to look for grubs, make sure they don't have gophers, something going on.
Yeah, if you see mounds, the only way to really know it'd be a root thing is to take a hand trowel and just dig beside the root ball on the stressed out side. This goes for anything, not just Alan is aspen. Right. When you see a stressed out plant, take a hand trowel, dig down in there. If you see even one little white worm, you've got dozens, and that's a grub. So the larva stage of beetles are called grubs. And so when they colonize, they'll literally eat. I've seen trees blow over in the wind because the grubs ate all the roots off. It could be that. And if you have it, if you see that, come see us. There's a real easy grub killer. You sprinkle it on there, water it in, takes them all out like that. And one application lasts for a whole year. But I hate to just start spreading grub killers out there for sure. Yeah.
But it's worth checking.
It's worth checking. Look for pocket gophers. They like the taste of aspens, but that would be obvious. Alan would have said, I have gophers that killed one of my branches. He didn't say that.
Surprised. Some people they see something die. They don't really check out the surrounding area to see what's going on. So gophers get out in the garden and see
are underground rats. They all deserve to die. But that's coming from a Southern boy. That's just what we did. So you don't want rats in the barn. You don't want them in the shed. You don't want them in the house.
Okay.
Should I go into my Southern accent?
No. Let's move on to Sherry. She lives out in Chino. She's having issues with grasshoppers.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise. She says in the past she's always used no-low bait, but she doesn't seem to be able to find it this year.
Yeah.
What are the other options out there for grasshoppers?
Yeah. So no-low bait, we've been selling that for decades. It's a great organic. It's also owned by a little family business, and the business burned down. They're trying to recover, but they're a small company of a very specialized organic. And so it's not going to be available in the marketplace. And people go, I'm going to find it online. Well, good luck. Yeah. And you better make sure you check the
expiration date.
Yeah, because if it's over like 60 days old, you don't want it. You're getting last year's leftover stuff. That's how you found it. So really what we're doing is 2 things. There's a spray. You can put it into a hose and sprayer. Just spray off those weeds, the back area where the grasshoppers are. Spray that and it'll become a barrier. It's called indoor-outdoor insect spray. That's it. It's very effective against grasshoppers, crickets, scorpions, blister beetles, but it's way safer than malathion, some of these nasty chemicals. So I would say spray that. The other one is we have a granular, it's called Turf Ranger. You sprinkle it out in the area where they are active. You water it in, and now as they cross that area, they pick it up. It's in the soil. It's living in the soil. They'll pick it up, and it takes out scorpions, grasshoppers, blister beetles, anything that crawls on the ground, slugs, pill bugs, all that kind of stuff. So I would say Turf Ranger if you want the long-term solution. Spread it out, water it in. If you want just, I want to watch them die and quiver before my eyes. And an indoor, outdoors bug spray, basically. Or come and talk to us. Sherry, come in here and talk to us. Stop emailing and asking questions. We want to see you. Bring a dead grasshopper with you. We'll show you how to kill it.
It's better to get them in the earlier stages than when they get like dinosaur size.
Yeah. So grasshoppers are funny. They have an exoskeleton. So their shell is their skeleton. And so when they're small, they just shed that like a snake. They shed it and they have another one. They shed it. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally it takes a shotgun or like air to surface to air missiles to take them out. They're huge. And those folks out in Prescott Valley, they're so fat and chubby, they can't even fly. I mean, they're huge. Yeah. I mean, you could barbecue them, feed the neighborhoods with one grasshopper. They're so ginormous. So there's a way to kill them. We can show you how to do that. Come see us. Definitely. That's it for this segment. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Be right back after this. Waters Garden companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Purple Robe Locust, Prescott Sunshine Geraniums, and Indian Hawthorn.
Wind is no problem for this Indian hawthorn.
Rose-colored flowers cover this spring bloomer that often repeat blooms in fall.
Dark blue berries adorn this compact bush that takes the wind and soaks up the sun like a native.
Perfect for low-maintenance gardens with virtually no pruning ever.
Every backyard should have at least one, and only found here at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. You're listening to Ken Lain, aka the Top 10 Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Family Garden Center. Listen daily as he answers the top 10 questions of the week, streaming on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you download your podcasts. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Garden Show with garden expert Ken Lain. Join the conversation daily as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Or visit face-to-face throughout the week where he can be found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So I've had a couple back surgeries and some injections and all that stuff, that lower back, L4, L5, S5, L5, S1, all that sciatica stuff. I mean, everyone goes, oh, Ken, you're so lucky. You get to dance around and play with the flowers. I'm actually a dirt dealer. And so plants come with roots, and they're heavy. And so I've kind of modified over the years where most of my gardening is done in raised beds that you can sit down on the lip, just lean in and just easier to get to. And containers, because they're just so easy to dig in, and then they're elevated. I mean, these are big pots, not little tiny things that dry out in an afternoon. I'm talking about large volumes of soil, because it's easier for me to get into and easier to garden. And I can travel, to go visit grandkids. And if something fails, volume of soil is a sponge. It holds moisture and food for that plant. And then an insider tip, I turn all of my containers, every one of them, into self-watering pots, even if they're not defined as self-watering. And here's how you do it. It's super, super easy. So you take a container. I like 14-inch or bigger. I've got some that are 3 feet across. I mean, they're huge. It's a container, but it's ginormous. And it's growing trees or big shrubs or a vine. Or flowers, some of the smaller things. And so, but minimum is kind of 14-inch, kind of that, I don't know, it's as wide as you are and kind of as deep. And the bigger the pot, the more the soil, the easier it is to garden in. What I'll do is I'll take that new container and I'll fill it completely with Waters potting soil. So a potting soil is mainly peat moss, and potting soil is a challenge. It needs to stay moist, but yet breathe and dry out. So this is a razor's edge in a dry climate. So we make our own soils. It's organic, and we've scientifically tested the different ones. This is the recipe. This is the mix that grows the best for containers and our plants, whether it's in the greenhouses for our own plants or in your yard. It's the same soil, but fill that pot up completely with water's potting soil up to about, I don't know, an inch from the top. I want to leave room to be able to water that some water capacity. If you leave soil too low in the pot, it looks funky. It's like, what, did they run out of money? Did they not have enough money for enough soil to fill the pot up? They got this beautiful piece of art called a ceramic pot, and they couldn't fill it with soil. No, you want it to be close to the top, but then have enough room to add some to water it. And so I'll do that. I don't put anything in the bottom of the pot. Soil right down to the bottom. The container should have a drainage hole in it. And so that drainage hole, I'll fill it with soil right down to the bottom. And then as that soil swells up, gets water, it swells up. It doesn't fall out the hole. It actually keeps soil from falling out of those drainage holes. When you do that, what that does is I'll put a saucer underneath that container, and I'll water the plant until I start to see water seeping out of the bottom of the pot. I'll water it until that saucer is filled. And then what happens is, as summer hits and it becomes very, very warm, that water the plant will wick the water back uphill, anti-gravity back to the roots, as long as it's soil from the root of the plant down to the bottom of the pot. And that soil can touch the water. The plant it knows what to do. It just pulls it right back up. So any container that has a drainage hole and consistent soil from the root ball of the plant down to the saucer's edge will do that. So you can turn any plant into a self-watering pot. And I do this for all of my plants. I mean, I've got roses and hydrangeas and trees. I've got some bigger pots. I've got some big saucers that I put underneath there. And it takes the edge off. It makes it so much easier. My tomatoes aren't going to wilt as much. My zucchini just keeps going. Hydrangeas never think about wilting. They just go, I'm blooming because I'm happy. Easy to turn any container into a self-watering container. Now, a big question I get, or mistake rookies make with new container gardening, is when you put a new container and you've got fresh soil. Let's say you just bought a new 14-inch, 20-inch, a bigger, beautiful glazed cobalt or oxblood red container. It fits your style. It looks beautiful. These should be pieces of art. And so you fill it up, you're going to plant it. Then you want to start watering your plants. How much water does it take to hydrate the plant and all that soil? I always think of it as a sponge. So if you take a sponge and put it into a 5-gallon bucket or a bowl, how much water will that sponge absorb? It's tremendous. It just always amazes me. And so I will water that soil. It's just like a sponge. Think of it as a sponge. It holds moisture for that plant around the root ball. And so it takes a tremendous amount of water. So if you've got a 5-gallon bucket filled with soil, and it's going to be sort of like filling a 5-gallon bucket with water. That soil should hold about that much moisture for a healthy soil, healthy plants. And so it takes way more than you think to initially get it hydrated. After that, the edge is off. So the soil it's absorbed all this moisture and it holds it there. And it releases it back to the plant or evaporates off after a bit. So think in those terms. I think it'll help you water those container gardens better, easier, more efficiently, just healthier for your plants in the long run. So think of your soil as a sponge or it's just a big old bucket. And how much water would it take to fill that bucket? That's how much water it needs. And you'll see the water trickling out the bottom eventually. All right, that's it for this segment. Be right back with more after this. Water's garden companion plants in May are purple robe locust, viney achevia, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and easy elegant roses.
Just plant these roses in a sunny spot and enjoy.
We've married the beauty of long stem roses with the easy care of shrub roses for landscape color like no other plant in the backyard.
Choose fragrant reds, radiant pinks, corals, vivacious yellows, and stately whites.
Extremely fragrant and only found locally at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
The Top 10 Gardener, your source for timely garden advice seasonally correct for the garden, guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lain in the studio. She comes each week with some inspiration, just 10 minutes of nothing but her garden rant.
I never rant. I'm not a rant. Well,
you can go off every once in a while, but usually not on gardening.
Not on gardening.
It's on business or some other, why are they doing that way? Anyway, so that's where we run at a high level. So
Yes.
we know what high level is. I can't brag about ourselves. We're always better quality, better, but we're noted for being really good at what we do. And so when you go to a place and they say they're that and they aren't, you kind of go, doggone it, they let me down. So doggone it. Yeah. Anyway. I ranted.
Say I went off a rant a couple days ago.
Ken hasn't
forgotten it yet.
Yeah, don't call him out.
Not going to.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you haven't forgotten.
No. Gardening.
Yeah.
So what can folks learn, be inspired, do in the gardens that can only come from you?
Only from me. Well, I wanted to let you guys know we are getting some more. So a lot of people have been asking, where's the cactus? Where's the agave? When are you guys getting those? And we always say, well, I like to come when it's a little warmer.
It's true.
So we have them. So all you people who've been wanting the cactus and the agaves and that kind of stuff. The
hardy varieties, not some cheesy Phoenix thing that's going to live for the summer and then die this winter. But these are hardy varieties for the mountains of Arizona. They're going to thrive for decades to come.
Decades.
I love it. I like it.
So the first ones I thought I would talk about. So most of the time, people don't think about growing the barrel cactus here.
Okay.
But there are 3 that would actually probably do pretty well up here. They might need a little, like we have a red fishhook cactus. So I've got some of those coming in. So we grow it in a container, but we bring it up a little closer to the house in the wintertime, give it a little protection.
Yeah.
And it does really well.
It's been years and years and years. It's a classic saucer bowl container. That screams style and selection.
And it's actually blooming.
It is, yeah.
It's kind of fun. Now. It looks really pretty.
Yeah.
And then the golden barrel cactus, which a lot of people don't think there again can't winter over. We have a neighbor, couple streets down. He put barrel cactus in. I said, no way. Not going to live. No way. Not going to do it. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Now he's got it in a hot, sunny spot.
Right.
He's got rock around it. So he's doing a little extra to give it that heat that it loves. But I would say you could do it.
Bright sun, reflective heat in a courtyard. That's where you have it. So for us, we just insurance. Right. Our barrel cactus is stunning. It's big. It's beautiful. It's expensive. I don't want to lose it. It's exotic. So I just bring it underneath the overhang at the front door. That's where it hangs out all winter. And in April, I take it back out and it hangs out outside. Yeah. I don't have it on the irrigation. We just leave it there. When we remember, we water it. So cactus don't need to be on the irrigation system. You don't need to put some of these things on. Just throw it out there and think about watering it a couple of times a month. Not a week, a month. It's more than enough.
So one of the other barrels I'm bringing in is called a long spine barrel. Oh. So it looked really cool. So I think it's definitely one to try.
Okay.
It's as hardy as the red fishhook that we have and the golden barrel.
Okay.
So I think it'd be a really nice one to try.
Yeah. I mean, you folks on the east side, the Jeromes, the Sedonas, you've got reflective heat, a courtyard where you built a wall. and you've got heat coming in. Those are the places, those are the microclimates where that sun warms it up really quick and it just keeps it toasty hot. That's where they're going to come back. And it's the winter that will take them out, or you simply overwatered them and they just exploded or rotted with water.
So we are getting some claret cup or the hedgehog.
Fun.
So that is definitely one. I mean, those are just native here. You find them everywhere up on the mountains, and whenever I go hiking, I'm always running into them. They've been blooming. They actually look gorgeous right now. So definitely a great one for those yards.
That's one too. You should warn people. So you can go to jail for harvesting cactus out in the wild. I mean, if you're doing it, don't get caught. Because they're getting heavily fines. It's a no-no. So we even have to have them, if you harvest them from a ranch, you have to have them specially tagged. You can do it, but there's special hoops you have to jump through with the Department of Agriculture and that kind of stuff. So just be careful. I know some of you go and harvest those clear cup. Just don't have anyone see you do that. So anyway,
just don't do it.
Or don't come get them. You can buy them for $50 and have your own. Don't have to worry about it.
That's right. So we're getting some different prickly pears. We already have the Santa Rita, which is the small, has a smaller ear paddle to it, kind of a purple color. So we have the Santa Rita and the Baby Rita. So we have both of those already in stock. We're also getting the Engelmans, which is the true native for here.
That's a true prickly pear.
Right.
Harvest the fruits, make jams and jellies.
There you go. Used to do that as a kid. A lot of fun. We're also getting the blind prickly pear. Now, don't ask me why.
Does it have glasses? Does it have a white cane?
I'm like, why do they call it blind? I don't know. Just what they call it. So, again,
sounds like an insult to
and also one called a chenille.
I don't know that one. Interesting.
Should all be nice and hardy for here and do quite well.
That's exciting.
So what's I always say it wrong.
What?
The botanical for prickly pear.
Apuntia? Apuntia.
Okay.
Yeah. Or opuntia. Or apuntia. It's opuntia.
I call it apuntia or something like that. So.
Just call it prickly pear. I mean, come on. Let's make it easy.
Definitely. So some of the agaves we're getting in. Agaves are another one that there are so many varieties. Yeah. And let me tell you, not all of them are winter harvest.
That's true. Yeah, very much.
Very much so. So we're getting Queen Victoria. We are also getting the shark skin. It's actually really cool because it has like that pattern on it. We're getting shark tooth.
I don't know that one, but it's got to be the same thing. Come on.
It's about the same thing.
Yeah.
We're getting one called White Ice. Which is really pretty because it has I don't know what we call it, spine, leaf, whatever. Has a white outline on it.
It's variegated. That's kind of neat.
So that's really cool. And then we're getting one called Dragon Toes. This one I can't remember. We brought a couple in that we knew were going to be more indoor varieties, but you could definitely enjoy them outside right now. Yeah. Put them in a container and then bring them in the wintertime and just treat them like a house plant.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. We do that with a lot of things. So why not an agave? So a lot of folks want to grow the blue agave, which is the great big one you see down in Phoenix. It don't winter up here. Trust me. I've tried a couple times. Of course, that's me. You can try it yourself, but you're not going to buy it from me and then have it die on my watch. Just kind of, I'm trying to sell things that I know will grow here, that we've proven ourselves and tried it. So another name for agave is century plant, because that entire family of plants puts on this huge flower stalk. It grows taller than you and I, just this beautiful flower, great pollinator. About every century is the myth. Not really every few years. It just depends. But I guess if left by themselves, once every century it'll bloom. Thus, century plant or century agave.
It just feels like a century.
Yeah, maybe just feels like a century. Basically, that's why. Garden trivia, plant trivia. There we go.
So I was talking to a customer. They had one that's putting off its big stock.
Yeah.
They start and they grow like feet a day.
Yeah, you can watch them.
Anyways, they were watching it. Came out one morning. It was gone.
Oh, what happened?
They think a pack rat.
Really?
I mean, it was just like, you could see where it'd been cut.
Well, pack rats
With
can do
agave,
that.
yeah.
Porcupines possibly
Yeah.
can. I've never heard of them eating agave, but they do things like that.
Yeah.
Oh, javelina?
I don't think
No,
it
they
was
don't do
javelina.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
really? I'm
Well, you
telling you,
never
all
know.
rats should die. Underground rats called pack rats, above ground rats, which are called rats, pack rats, they should all be gone. So that's
But
all we got for this
okay.
segment. So thank you,
Sounds good.
Lisa, for
Yeah.
the hardy agaves and hardy cacti
Cactus.
are here and ready to plant at Waters Garden Center. Be right back after this. Ken and Lisa Lain, the Mountain Gardeners. Waters' companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Indian hawthorn, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and purple robe locusts.
Incredible long clusters of purple flowers in May that look just like wisteria flowers hanging from this local bloomer.
The 8-inch fragrant flowers cover the tree profusely.
Super hardy and drought tolerant with a brisk growth rate of 2 feet in 1 year.
It's just the perfect backyard shade tree.
You'll find the shadiest trees here at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Additional shows of this podcast, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook, Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Welcome to the Top 10 Garden Show with Ken Lain. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
If you have animals, javelina, deer, antelope, elk, all these different things, we are surrounded by the forest, and the animals come into the neighborhoods, and they're at night, they just get bored. It's so entertaining in these neighborhoods. Look what kind of bush this is. I've never tried one of these. What do you think, Bob? Does that taste good to you? Doesn't me either. Let's keep moving. Let's try that one over there. They're noticing things in your yard. Animals they don't like herbally, smelly kind of things. And so lavender, salvia, sage, things that have a scent to them, thyme, they're not going to bother, or look greatly less likely to go eat things. Now, deer have like 2 stomachs like a cow. So sometimes they'll eat things just kind of because they're bored and they're browsing through, and they finally realize, I don't like this. And they keep moving on. I planted one that was a cat mint. So if it's got mint, thyme, any kind of herbal name in it, you're probably good to go. Cat mint's a blue perennial. So finally the perennials are coming into the garden center. It's a late spring through summer. So now through June is kind of your best selection of perennials. These are plants that come back year after year. So perennial and permanent both start with P. Okay. So annuals they bloom like crazy for 1 year and then they die. They can reseed, but basically they're showstoppers annually and then they're done. Perennials and P are permanent, start with P. So they come back every year. Your best selection shows up starting now. And so some of them are over the top. So cat mint is almost always exclusively blue, kind of a light purpley color. So it's a pretty plant. It's mounting up to about knee high, kind of a big, just circle shaped perennial. It's really stunning. Animals don't eat it, don't bother. It blooms a long time. It's a perennial pollinator. So your bees and butterflies love it. But there's a new one that came in that's white. I went, oh my gosh, I've never seen white cat mint. That's pretty cool. And it's got kind of a blue, silvery blue foliage to it. So it's quite striking in the garden. I've got to plant one of those. And so you'll see a lot of good selection. In fact, if earlier in spring, what you have is a green blob in a bucket, and it's not blooming, it's not inspiring, but has a great tag. So the growers, we make up for, it's not quite in bloom yet. You're going to love echinacea, but it's going to look like this in a month. So they give a great tag, and gardeners know I'll take it. But now you get to see it in full bloom. You get to see the hummingbirds flying around it. You get to see which ones are pollinators because bees and butterflies are over it. It's great time and everything's in bloom. It's inspiring. It's pretty. Another one that's sort of like that are your summer shrubs. So summer shrubs we hold off on because they're just so late to leaf out. And there's so many great spring shrubs. So it starts with winter blooming jasmine. It's the number. That's the one that starts everything. It's this beautiful evergreen shrub, gets about chest high, and just has these stunning, just stellar yellow flowers, covered in yellow flowers. After that's done, the forsythia and quince start to bloom. And so we've got lots of those that show up. So I think I might have maybe six winter blooming jasmines left. And then when that's out, we're done until next winter. I've got one quince, maybe 4 or 5 forsythias, then lilac. So I've got a few lilacs left. There's a lot more choices. So blues and whites and yellows and pinks, and there's different sizes. And then it's butterfly bush. And then it starts in with the summer shrubs. And now we're into the summer shrubs. And it starts with crepe myrtles, smoke bush, probably a local famous one. Smoke bush it's about head high, maybe a little taller if you just let it go. Great purple foliage. It's quite striking. But the flowers, we had some come in, it's just starting to bloom. The flowers hover above the foliage and it looks kind of smoky. From a distance, you go, is that bush on fire? Is this a Moses kind of moment? I went up to the top of Mount Ararat and there's the bush on fire. God's going to talk to me through smoke bush. No, it's just a pretty bloom that's famous here. So it comes in purple, green, and I think chartreuse color. But purple's the most famous. It just leaves out late. And finally, we're darn close. Next weekend's June. It finally starts to leaf out and show off. Crepe myrtles. You'd swear the things were dead first of spring, in April. And then it warms up in May and they just start leafing out and they take off with new growth. So they're not quite in bloom yet, but they're starting to bud up very heavily. Probably the most famous hibiscus that we grow here, it's called Rose of Sharon. So this is a shrub that gets up easily head high, and it'll go taller if you want it to. So maybe 9 foot at most. You can easily keep it down to about chest high or so, but it's just this beautiful vase-shaped bush. It's deciduous. It loses its leaves in winter, but it's got literally hundreds of hibiscus flowers that cover this plant. It has more flowers than it does foliage. I've had Rose of Sharon that are so laden with flowers. If you fertilize them right, they just almost fall over. You you have to hold them upright. They're drunk with flowers. You're just like, oh my God, they're going to bloom right now. And they're crazy. It's a famous plant here. Now your tropical hibiscus, the big ones that get as bigger than your hand, they don't grow here. So they die out. They'll grow. I've got them, but they die out in the winter. So we sell them as annuals for containers, that kind of stuff. But Rose of Sharon has maybe a baseball size flower. So it's smaller than your hand, but it's pretty substantial, but it makes up for it in just sheer quantity. Just literally hundreds of them. So great choice in full sun. The more sun you give these plants, the more flowers you get. Another one that's famous. Now, we grow a lot of honeysuckle. So vining honeysuckle. It's a great one. So it's bulletproof. Animals don't bother it. Takes sun, takes wind. It climbs up trellises, pergolas, or a ground cover, spreads across and holds the hillside. We've probably got 6 or 7 different colors, from lemonade color to your traditional halls to purple, reds. Hummingbirds are going to love you because they love honeysuckle. But did you know that honeysuckle also comes in a shrub form, and it's equally as hardy? The same pretty flower, but it doesn't vine with these tendrils that crawl up things. It just has this pretty bush about head high. So it's about the same size as a lilac, crepe myrtle, Rose of Sharon, and just quite handsome. It's a really easy to grow, bulletproof, pollinating, attracting, hummingbirds are going to love you kind of shrub. It's a good one for here. Another one sort of like this, the most famous of all, the snowball bush grow in Prescott Valley. I've seen some stunning. We didn't think that one could actually take our sun, but Prescott Valley's proved it. You get wind and sun out there and it's just doing great. I think it's that clay soil you all have. It just holds the moisture and just the plant adapts really well to that. So snowball bush, you folks from the East Coast, there's a shrub about head high. It's from the viburnum family. It actually has flowers on it the size of huge. Think of huge like snowballs, white flowers, and it covers a plant late spring through summer. It's an amazing plant. Takes the wind, takes the sun, easy to grow, fast growing. So there's a lot of summer shrubs, and you're starting to see those show up along with the summer perennials. Now's the time to shop them, to enjoy them, to take them in, to take them. There's just a lot of choice and a good time to plant. That's it for this segment. We got more for you, though. Don't go anywhere. Be right back right after this. You can grow your own vitamins.
We can show you how to grow your own vegetables and herbs for a healthier you.
Water's plants are entirely organic, with plant genetics never altered and non-GMO.
Natural vitamins straight from the garden with naturally healthier herbs and vegetables.
Healthier plants for a healthier you with plants from Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Shop Waters in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com. You're listening to garden expert Ken Lain. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Thanks for tuning in to the Top 10 Garden Show. You've tuned in to the Top 10 Gardener with garden expert Ken Lain. Join him daily as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lain.
So you're seeing a beautiful perennial or a huge perennial, a real short kind of shrubby kind of thing in the landscapes. It's called red hot poker. Kind of looks like a yucca or a Spanish broom or some of these a dagger. You're looking at it's got this southwesterny kind of foliage to it, but the flowers hover at least knee high above the foliage. And it looks like a red hot poker. It looks like a flower it's got orange and yellow and red all in the same plant. It's beautiful. And animals don't bother that. So they kind of leave it alone. So it's a great plant for out in the landscape. It adapts really well to native type drought hardy landscapes. So we put it in there with the red yuccas, which is probably the number one selling of all of them. In fact, I have a new giant red yucca. So red yucca typically only gets about knee high, about the same size or height as a red hot poker. But this one, the new variety is called giant red yucca. It easily gets up as tall as you and I. I mean, usually red yucca is like below hip high. It's real low. This one is as big as you are. So it gets really big with the same giant red flower that hovers above this yucca type of foliage. It's quite striking. So if you've got a cinder block yard and you just need something bigger, you don't need little things in front of the cinder block. You want to soften up all this hardscape is what we call it, or the fencing, the decking, the rock yard. These are all hardscapes, fixed things. Softscape are the living, breathing plants part, and they soften up all the hardscape. And there's a blend. You need about 60% softscape to soften up all the hardscape. Otherwise, it feels too hot, too dusty. It feels empty. If you get the plant mixture right, it starts to soften it. You go, oh, this is such a wonderful garden. How did you create this? Oh my God. I just love being out here and sipping wine, watching the sunset, hummingbirds, sipping some coffee in the morning. That's just a pleasant environment. It's a balance of softscape your plants to your hardscapes, all the rest of the things that aren't really living in the yard. Softscape, hardscape. That's just a basic thing they teach you in landscaping, like 101. Okay, there you go. You're now a professional. You need a job? Come talk to me. You're hired. And so this one, the giant yucca, would be perfect against the back where you've got a 6-foot cedar fence and you need to soften that up and draw the eye away from the fence and towards the living, breathing parts of the yard, softscape. A giant red yucca is perfect and easy to grow. In fact, if you kill that thing, it'll be from overwatering, not from underwatering. So abuse it, kick dirt at it, curse at it. It's going to grow. Just don't give it too much water. I'd put it on a drip system and kind of treat it like my other trees and shrubs, maybe once a week. Give it a good drink, keep the flowers coming up and looking good. So that's kind of how you take care of that. Where else was going with that? Oh my gosh, pruning. Oh yeah, clean up your. I had a red hot poker that was just had the old growth on it, and I had new tender growth coming up through the old growth. It was brown with green. I went, golly, that looks terrible. It's an accent behind my pond. I went down and I ripped off all of the brown foliage. Your grasses, red sedge, things that if you've got brown foliage, they should not be on that plant. Cut those things out of there, and it will encourage the new green growth to come up fresh from that. Never be afraid to summer prune or clean up those perennials. It's okay. It almost prefers it. It'll celebrate. It'll bloom better for you if you do that. So I pulled off the green growth on this red hot poker, and it just looks fair. It doubled in size this week. All I had to do is touch it, feel it, clean it up, and it just wanted to grow. It just wanted to be touched and beautified, and then it just grew better. That's it for this show. So throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to fans of the show.
There's nothing like tomatoes picked fresh from your garden.
Waters' Mountain Tomato Collection are varieties proven to produce and thrive. Heirlooms, beefsteaks, cherries, naturally grown for local success.
Completely organic, never genetically altered, and utterly delicious. They're ready for your garden now.
You can grow your own this spring, and we can help. Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
Shop Waters in-store or online at watersgardencenter.com. If you want a more fruitful garden, increased success in landscape that just feels better, then tune in daily to the Top 10 Garden Podcast. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.